passion and pageantry of college football lives here. This is the Paul Finebaum Show, Hour 4 podcast.
This might be college football heaven.
And we've made it to the final hour of the week. Let's continue. Matt is up next in New Orleans.
Hey, who does Chris remind you of? That Cosby character, Fat Albert boy. But anyway, he brings some levity to the show. He's got the wrong team, though. I mean, he pulled for South Carolina, somebody in the conference. But look, I called to tell you, really, that Archie Manning was at the Children's Hospital. The Mannings have done so much work with it that the other night it made me almost tear. And they're naming it the Mannings Family.
Are they really? How
Children's
great.
Hospital. The Mannings, and it was just a wonderful thing. And as for Peter's concerned, his brother Ronnie used to be a bartender in the neighborhood. I'm from down the French parts from Mayway, and a real cool guy. But I remember one night listening to the radio, wasn't at the game, and he broke the forward, the guard scoring record against the Knicks. And during that game, this is a true story, during that game, Clyde, which was Walt Frazier, he was so smooth. Right. He was a Saluki from Southern Illinois. He was the best defense player I ever saw. Well, anyway, so they had Monroe, Earl of Pearl Monroe on. And when Earl, and he jumped all over Earl, you letting that man score? He says, "You're the defensive player of the year. Did the same to you, you know? Why didn't you go guard him?" They couldn't stop him, man. And he was just and many years later, I met him in Clearwater. I'm looking at a few people that haven't really met him personally. This is really a long story, so I'll stop. But
take your time.
My nephew, to his thing there, and because he had quick feet, and I got to speak to him personally, and that's a story in itself. But I'll tell you one at Southeastern when he was at LSU, and I was at Southeastern, and a professor at LSU said, "Look, Pete," he was first back in. He says, "Put on the blackboard, class called off, And so he wrote it on there, and what happened was when he put it, class called off, and everybody said, "Pete Maravich called class off today." So by the time it got from Baton Rouge to Hammond, they were doing it too. Class called off, Pete Maravich, and everybody was laughing about it. He was a special person. People really, he was like the bear. All these people y'all talk about so cool. I'll resurrect them. Archie Manning, they're still around, some of them, But anyway, I'm not crazy about all the Clemson callers either, What's your view of that, Paul? You let them on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind anyone calling, but I do mind when somebody calls and acts like they should be paid attention to.
More than what they contribute.
Yeah.
More than what they contribute. You need to cultivate some more great callers like in the old days with Tammy and Phyllis and even Charles, he was a comical guy,
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of Chris, he is the only person who thinks he's a good caller.
That's true. But most people that follow your show, they love to hear from a guy from Ohio State or even a guy from Clemson, but not so much every day. It gets stale, because everybody is pulling for SEC teams, What you ought to do, my wife and I said what Paul ought to do is have an open mic night for all the other conferences to call at least once or twice a week.
Like
We're having an open hour call, and then everybody could appreciate these people. And Chris could tell about how he's going to beat up on LSU next year and Alabama and Texas and all those teams that they think they can beat. You follow? And but I don't see them getting past Miami, And I'll tell you something else. I wish the SEC would go for North Carolina and Duke. North Carolina for their history department and Duke for their basketball team. Both of them are great basketball.
Well, I think in a perfect world, if the SEC expanded today, North Carolina would be the first school they went after. I don't think Duke would, because I just don't think as important as Duke basketball is, it does not translate to where the SEC goes. One thing the SEC has tried to do recently with the last two, they're very much in favor of state universities. Oklahoma, Texas. I realize they also have A&M, but that was a difference. A&M was brought in for a different reason. So North Carolina is the leader in terms of what the SEC would be interested in because it's a huge state. It's a great school. It's got a lot of things that really do matter. Matt, always great to hear from you. Cat Daddy, who is not related to Chris from South Carolina, even though they reside in the Palmetto.
Big Paul looking good and sounding good. I'm going to tell you what, that Chris from Clemson, he's a clown. He is nothing but a... So here, what I want to tell you was, today, guess who comes in the liquor store?
Clemson Tom.
Yes, sir, and he buys a case of Palmetto Moonshine. Now, I wait till he pays for it. And then after he pays for it, I said, is that the case you sent in, Mr. Finebaum? Again, for the third time, he pulls out his cell phone. Hello? And he looks at me like, I got to go, and walks right out the door.
That is funny. I love that.
Man, don't give you your moonshine. But I do have a great recipe for folks for the Super Bowl. Take you some Palmetto Moonshine.
Okay.
And soak your chicken wings in it overnight. And then cook them the next day. Fry them however you want to do them. Put a little barbecue sauce on them. I'm going to tell you, you will enjoy Palmetto Moonshine chicken wings. Give it a shot. God bless you. And Patrick is going to whoop the Eagles. That man's the greatest quarterback in the world. And the Eagles, 28-24.
Okay. Oh, that is outside the number. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Let us continue with Batch, who is in Augusta, GA.
Paul, can you hear me?
I sure can. Thank you for the call.
I can't believe I'm on your show.
Well, I'm glad you made it.
All right. I'm a first-time caller from Jackson, Tennessee. You been there?
I sure have. Been there a number of times.
Right. You're a legend down there. I'm retired military. I live in Augusta, Georgia. I train the soldiers. Greatest job in the world, Paul.
Well, how long have you served?
22 years.
That is fantastic.
Right.
How much longer are you in for?
Oh, I'm retired now.
Oh, you're retired. Okay.
I train the soldiers. Yeah. Paul, I'm a fan of Alabama. You just gotta like Saban and the Bear, you know. But I'm a follower of Tennessee. I bleed orange, Paul. That casket that they brought you out in, remember that? I want to go out like that, Paul.
This is the great part. Once you spend 5 or 6 minutes in a casket, you're not in a hurry to get in another one.
But if you don't allow me, Paul, can I tell you the problem at Tennessee?
I wish you would.
Okay, here it is. From the AD to the boosters, the coaches, the players, and even the fans, they have accepted mediocrity too long. They accept losing too easy, Paul. You know, we don't have the attitude, the atmosphere, the culture, or the mindset of winning programs up there right now. You know, I don't even know if we think we can win. It seems like, Paul, we just got a lack of commitment. You know, you can't win a national championship with walk-ons, 2, 3, and 4-star players. You just can't do that. You know, I'll give you 2 references real quick. Mark Richt was at Georgia. You remember him?
Of course.
Yeah, he was winning 9, 10 games, and they said that wasn't enough. So they got rid of him, and the program was better for it. Okay? Texas A&M AD, he said, Jimbo got to go. Got with the boosters, they got him out of there, you know, and the program is better for it. I'm not saying, Paul, that Josh should be fired, okay? But what I am saying, this administration of coaches should be giving a letters of concern why we have not won a national championship. We're wasting too much talent, you know. Paul, I think coaches, this current administration coach, I think they've reached their ceiling. I don't think we can win a national championship with this administration right now because we've had the talent. What do you think?
I'm perplexed because I think it's been proven the last couple of years if you get the right pieces, you can win one.
Right. Right. After the Ohio State game, I would have called all coaches in the auditorium and said, "You are officially on notice. But I'm gonna get you some talent up here. I'm gonna go to the boosters. We're gonna spend some money and get you some talent up here." See, Paul, Saban could coach the coaches and he could coach the players, and he could make those changes. You know what I'm talking about, in the middle of the game, like bringing Tua out.
No, Batch, I think the issue for DeBoer next year, he has a very tight window, because the fans are always for the coach, but they're highly dubious of this guy. And if next season doesn't go well, I don't know where he goes. This is not a rebuild. He inherited one of the great programs in college football, and he made the least out of it.
Right. And I'm talking about also Tennessee. Our offense was predictable. Our defense was confused.
Yeah.
Kurt Hershey said, if the DBs just turn around and look at the book for the ball, it'll fall right in their hands. And that's coaching. 13 games into the season, so there's a coaching problem at Tennessee, and there's a talent problem at Tennessee.
I'm not ready. I'm not quite as easy prepared to rule Tennessee out, but as Alabama. Batch, thank you. Really great call. We have to go to a break right now. We'll get your reaction to that. More phone calls when we come back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We are back on a Friday night, and let's go to St. Louis, Missouri, and John is next.
Hello, Paul. Happy Friday.
Hello, John.
Paul, quick question for you, trivia, and I'm going to show my age here, but couple of things. Do you remember where Earl the Pearl Monroe went to college at without looking it up on Wikipedia?
I do not.
Well, he went to Winston-Salem State. And he took his team to I guess it'd be the equivalent of the NCAA Division II finals 2 years in a row.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And they beat Southwest Missouri State.
Okay.
In one of those games in the late 60s, and Earl was he was a tremendous player. As you know that. We all know that. So, and he started out with the Baltimore Bullets.
Right. I did know that.
Yeah. Anyway, Paul, but the reason I called, I'm surprised no one else has brought this up, but I'm just going to bring it up.
Okay.
We're coming up on the Super Bowl here, and everybody hasn't talked about this, but I'm going to get a survey going Monday because I'm not very pleased with the halftime entertainment again this year. I think it's very amateur, quite frankly.
Okay, so the halftime entertainment is Kendrick Lamar. Am I correct? Yeah.
And there's somebody else.
You're not a fan of Kendrick?
Well, obviously not, Paul.
Okay, so John, let me. This is always dangerous. So tell me if I could get Roger Goodell on the phone and say, okay, Roger, cancel Kendrick, who's won 22 Grammys, and John from St. Louis is going to pick out 2 or 3 different people to bring out. So who are they?
Well, Paul, first of all, for the national anthem, and God Bless America, I would have the Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
Okay, that's perfect.
And by the way, what's wrong with that, young man?
Nothing. I'm not arguing.
Okay. And then at halftime, I could see a combination. I think it'd be an absolute fabulous hit of having Lady Gaga along with Nancy Sinatra do the halftime
Lady
show,
Gaga
Paul.
did halftime a couple of years ago. Nancy Sinatra is 98 years old.
Okay, you're not going to let
Nancy Sinatra had
again.
one song, John. These boots are made for walking in like 1964.
Well, no, she doesn't, and you're showing your colors again.
Okay.
And you know something, Paul? You're not fair. You don't. This is the thing about you, Paul. You don't tell a whole story.
Nancy Sinatra is 84 years old.
Nancy Sinatra still performs.
Okay.
And you know who Lady Gaga's major influence was on her life, Paul?
Nancy Sinatra?
Absolutely. So, you know something,
all I know is
Paul?
that Nancy Sinatra once dated Elvis. That shows you her period.
Well, okay. Paul,
Okay,
do
okay,
this.
John, before you go.
No.
Other than Nancy Sinatra and Gaga, who's already done it, who else?
I would have the Guess Who.
Yes. I like the Guess Who. I mean, I listen to them at eighth grade parties.
Yeah, I used to dance out there. Anyway, Paul, let me tell you something, young man.
No time left for you.
No time left for you. And Paul, you're sometimes, Paul, you are very immature. Your wife. Did you tell me your wife was a psychiatrist?
No, I never told you that. My wife is an internist.
You need to get some psychiatric help. Goodbye,
John. I actually agree with you about me getting psychiatric help. That's does anybody know if do you know if our major medical insurance covers psychiatric help? Does it? I'm going to get an appointment as soon as the break because I do. You know why I need psychiatric help? From talking to John. Jack is up next. Hello, Jack.
Hello, Paul Finebaum. Buckeye Jack from Central Ohio.
Oh, wow.
And I want to tell you, I talked to you very few days ago, and I cannot believe that you have a demeanor to put up with these people that don't know straight up, straight down, right or left. And I think if you would want to give me your address that I could send you a money order that you could buy at the candy store, some of the candy pacifiers for these people that complain and talk down to you, I would gladly pay the shipping for them. Because I think you are the most intermediate person both ways on everything that you cover. You do a terrific job. And all I hear is these grumpy, and I don't know if their life is so godless that they don't have anything else to do but to ridicule people as yourself. And I hope you know that I'm a very avid Ohio State football, basketball, all sports Ohio State fan. And last night, Ohio State played a game against Maryland, and I wish you would see the last shot of the game because the announcers were thinking Ohio State was going to be into another loss, and it was a very exciting and well-played game on both sides. And I want to thank you again for letting me talk.
Jack,
you are one terrific guy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You be well, Jack. We go from we're in Big Ten country tonight. Jack is in Ohio. Steve is in Wisconsin. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Paul. Just a long time watch, and I enjoy your show tremendously here from the Midwest. But and I'm just glad I didn't have to follow the caller from St. Louis. But anyway, I was drafted during Vietnam. I enlisted in the Navy. My home port was Gulfport, Mississippi. I was a Navy Seabee, and one of my deployments was to Sicily. And I played a lot of basketball when I was in the military, and I became good. I worked on a NATO base there with my detachment, and I became good friends with the base commander. And that summer, Pete Maravich and his dad, they were going around to different places in Europe, and Pete was putting on ball handling demonstrations, and the commander. I'll be 73 in November, but an avid basketball fan. But I had the privilege of meeting Press and Pete for about 15 minutes in the commander's office, and just a really just neat people. And anyway, I asked Pete. I said, "So what do you miss back home?" And I think he had a couple beagle dogs, and he said he missed his dogs. But that was just that was a thrill for me. And I being up here in the Big Ten country, when I was stationed in Gulfport from 1973 to 77, and I would go out, drive around the community, and in the evening, of course, it was hot in the summer, but there were these little kids out there under the lights playing football, and I said to myself, growing up here in Wisconsin, I said, it's going to take us a long time to compete with the Southern football. But over the years, we're trying to get there here in Wisconsin. But I appreciate all the recruits that Florida and Alabama and Texas and so on. Wisconsin, we're really nice up here. We're friendly. We like to drink beer, but I think we represent the Big Ten well, I think.
Well, what a fantastic call. Steve, thank you very much for sharing your story. We head to the break right now. We still have 30 minutes remaining on this Friday afternoon, early evening.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And Brian is up next as we head for home here on a Friday. Hey, Brian.
Hey, this is Brian from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and I'm just going to be talking about how Alabama's rebuilding year and their recruiting class.
Yeah, what do you think, Brian?
I think that this is going to be a major rebuilding year because after Nick Saban left, and a lot of people have been transferring since last year, and this is Kalen DeBoer's first true year of being head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, and I just want to say that Kalen DeBoer is trying to do something that he's just trying to work as hard as he can to try to get this recruiting year and how they should rebuild. So, yeah.
Well, that sounds great. Well, Brian, listen, thanks for sharing that, and hope we'll talk again. You have a great weekend. Jace is up next.
Yeah, hey, Brian was a well-spoken young man there, Paul.
He really was.
Yeah, and like I told you about John, Lunatic Fringe. But I got a Pistol Pete story I want to tell you real quick.
Okay.
I had a buddy of mine I went to high school with, and his dad went to the University of Georgia whenever Merritt was playing, and evidently, they started yelling as soon as he got the ball, "Shoot, Pete, shoot! Shoot, Pete, shoot!" And he pulled up from half court and hit a half court shot. And he said the damn crowd sat down for the whole game. He never said another word.
That's great. Hey, Jay, thanks for sharing the story. You bet. Robert in Kentucky is up next.
Hey, Paul. I've
Hey,
been
Robert.
listening to you for a long time and been watching you for a long time. And I enjoy most of your people on that show. But what the hell is wrong with John from Missouri?
Well, the answer is too many things.
He needs to go to an institute.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
I mean, he is nuts. I don't know.
I've tried to be tolerant, but I don't think it's possible that we can do much for him.
If it was up to me, I would, every time he'd call, I'd just hit the button on that damn thing.
John, that's some of the best advice I've ever heard. So I will think about that every time he calls in the future.
Tell Bash
Probably be
I
about
love him,
5
man.
more times tonight.
Tell Bash I love him. He's from Colorado. I'm not from Colorado, but I like his style.
I will pass that along. Robert, you be well. Dallas is up next in Austin. Hello, Dallas.
Hey, Paul and Randy. It's an honor and a privilege, and thanks for having me. I've been a listener since A&M joined the SEC and religiously since Texas has, and I just want to thank you for the amazing work you do and cultivating one of the most passionate fan bases on the planet and just promoting the accomplishments of these student athletes in the Southeast Conference and highlighting also the student journalists and their exceptional work.
Thank you.
And just making sure people hear about the history and traditions of college football in the South. And you give a microphone to people for the voices of wisdom, in this realm. So I love hearing these stories and folks who have seen decades of these teams play, whether it's Bama or LSU or Georgia and now Texas. And we're honored to be a part of it, honestly, as a Texas grad, lifetime Longhorn, and a new fan of yours who's previously been on the outside looking in on the SEC and now being a part of it. I can say genuinely to all the Ohio State and Michigan and Big Ten fans and Florida State fans out there, at pretty much any other non-SEC team out there, y'all ain't got this, calling in on 6:30 p.m. on a Friday evening just to say how much, people love about these schools and their athletics. You consider it a down year for the SEC, whatever, it doesn't matter, but it's the culture and it's the appreciation that people have for everything else that goes on at these places. And so thank you, and I'm just happy to watch competitive football games on Saturdays instead of the last 10 years of what, we've been watching the opposite at Texas. So hook 'em, OU sucks.
Thank you very much. Really good to hear from you. And Cheerleader is up next.
Hey, Paul, thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, Cheerleader.
And since that guy just said Oklahoma and Texas, isn't that what he said?
That is right.
Who's the worst? Who's the best rivalry? Alabama and Auburn or them?
You said who's the best rivalry between what?
Alabama and Auburn and Texas and Oklahoma. Is that
I think it's Alabama and Auburn because Texas and Oklahoma really don't hate each other.
Okay. Well, let me say one more thing, Paul. What was it about the students and the way they entered some basketball game that there became a little ruku in the line? Did you read that?
I did not. No.
And they had to set some more rules. I'm thinking it was down at Auburn when they had the last big game down there, and there were just so many people trying to get in. There was a little bit of confusion, and they laid out some rules on that.
Okay, well that's good.
The next thing I want to say to you, Paul, is I really do enjoy being a part of the show, and I love being cheerleader. All my friends, everywhere I go around Birmingham, it's, hey, cheerleader, when have you talked to Paul? And they are just, it's amazing. You just can't even believe it. But,
well, you know what I think it was? I think it was when you came by when we were in Tuscaloosa last. I guess that was the Iron Bowl. I mean, you killed it on TV.
Well, I can do it again.
Well, we might have to do that. And for those who don't know, cheerleader was really a cheerleader.
Yeah, I can cheer. I can get you going. And I'm a cheerleader for you, Paul. I'm a cheerleader for you. Now, can I say something about John?
Yes.
Okay, yesterday when he ended his call and he was getting on you again, he said something about freedom. You don't let people express themselves and this and that. Well, if somebody's going to come on and be all negative and just sour grapes, we don't want to hear that. And so if he doesn't want to follow your rules for your show, then don't let him call in. And see, here I go talking about him, and the reason y'all let him call in is because people talk about him. Is that right?
That's really. Listen, I don't really care what he says because what he says is rarely correct. I'm hoping to help him. We do offer that here on the show. Cheerleader, thank you. We head to the break. A few more minutes remaining here on a Friday night.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And also straight ahead is Brandon, the pressure washer.
What's going on, Paul? You doing all right today?
Yes, sir.
You know, Paul, it's going to be hard to be matched up against someone like High Man, Legend, Larry, and Jim if he participates in the Call of Fame. All those guys are Hall of Fame callers. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and hope maybe I can get past the first round. But Paul, I decided to take the day off today. You know, you can do that when you're self-employed, kind of like that week's vacation you just took. But today, I had time to ponder, Paul. And, you know, I used to not like you, Paul. And I'm sure you probably got a lot of haters out there, but I used to not like you. I would listen to you on occasions, but I just didn't. Maybe because you were straightforward. I don't know. But what I'm getting at, Paul, is all I do is listen to you now, and I call in. So I guess the tables have turned on me. And also being around you in person, Paul, and I'm not trying to kiss ass or anything, but why didn't I start calling 10 years ago, Paul? You got an answer for that?
Yeah, I'm more interested in why you were so opposed to listening.
I don't know, Paul. And I take up for you anytime somebody tells me they don't like listening to you. I take up for you now. I stand my ground on your part. And I told you yesterday, Paul, you're hard to beat. But my question is, when you decide to retire, what am I supposed to do, Paul? I'm an SEC football and Paul Finebaum fanatic. So I need you to give me
I'm
an
glad
answer
you brought
on what I'm
that up
supposed to
because
do.
I have people ask me that a lot, and I think you know because I've talked to you recently. I just agreed to a new deal here, so I don't think that is imminent. So I feel pretty good about where we are.
Well, that makes me feel better, Paul. Like I said, when you get a day off to ponder like that, and there's no telling what you may think about, well, for some reason, Paul Finebaum crossed my mind, and I said, I'm going to call him today, and we got to set the record straight on what I'm supposed to do. So that makes me feel better, Paul.
Well, it's interesting when when I was in Birmingham, I had to make the next move. I left and I had to sit out for 3 months to allow the contract to lapse, and I had people that stopped me, and especially people like you, service people that are driving around, and it was people got mad at me. I said, hey, listen, I'm coming back. They thought it was over back in the day, but of course, since you didn't listen back then, it didn't affect you.
Well, I listened, Paul, but you would make me mad. I mean, I always listen to you. I may change the channel if you said something about Alabama, but I've always listened.
Well,
But,
what I'm really admire about you, Brandon, is, and again, Saban spoiled everybody, but when I was impressed this year when things went haywire. You were objective about Alabama. You weren't just a typical head in the sand fan.
No, that's exactly right, Paul. I love Alabama. I love Alabama football. I get into the basketball portion of it, too. I watch Nate Oates. I love Nate Oates, but football is my life, Paul. I love Alabama football. But, Paul, I want you to make your decision when it's time to retire. Do it based on your fans and not, a family decision. Do it.
Well, I've kind of joked about, you work for a big company like this. I mean, the operative saying is, you'll stay as long as they'll let you.
Yeah.
They've let some pretty well-known people go, but I hope we're around for a long time.
Well, Paul, you have a great weekend and your crew too. Roll Tide, Paul.
You got it. RTR to you. Thanks for the call. Colin is in Florida here on a Friday night. Hey, Colin.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you.
I just wanted to talk about how do you think the Florida Gators schedule is going to compare to last year's and strength of schedule?
Well, I tell you, I'll call it back up again because to me, it's more dangerous. Remember, Florida lost those early games against Miami and A&M. Both those games are on the road this year. LSU's on the road. That was a win last year. Ole Miss is on the road. That was a win last year. Even Kentucky can be difficult. So I don't like this schedule very much. Tennessee at home is an advantage. Florida won there, but I see some. I tell you, the key games are going to be at LSU and at Miami back to back. What do you tell me what's going to happen?
I don't know. I'm a little nervous about it. But I do think Lagway's going to do pretty good, though. You think he's going to be a Heisman contender?
Well, it depends. If Florida can win 9 or 10 games, he can. But here's where it gets really brutal. At LSU, at Miami, Texas, which is going to be 1 or 2 in the country, and then A&M. The problem for Billy Napier, if he's not careful, the season could get away with him before early October.
Yeah, I agree. That's the issue with the strength of schedule, so we'll see.
And I am looking at that, trying to figure out what a good record would be, because there are 4 games there that he may very well be the underdog.
Well, also we have LSU early in the season, so that'll be interesting how that goes.
Yeah, and don't. This is not last year's LSU team with Nussmeier having a great deal of experience. They've added some compliments. I think LSU is going to be very difficult to beat, especially in Tiger Stadium. And then the Georgia game, I don't need to comment on that. I
think we're going to give hell to Miami, though.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right. That's a game.
I mean, we might as well.
Yeah, Carson Beck is the quarterback. I think Miami is a must-win for the Gators.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I think Carson Beck's overrated.
Well, he certainly was this year.
Yeah, he was throwing those picks, boy.
So what would you consider a good record for the Gators?
Anything. I feel like anything to get to the playoffs, but I could see them. I don't know. There's some big games, but to me, it's not as hard as last year's schedule.
I don't know. I mean, I realize that the team is better. Lagway is a better quarterback than Mertz, but I think in some ways it's more challenging. Now, the Tennessee at the end at home, much easier than playing in Knoxville. I think that's a real opportunity for a win. Florida State's a win, but man, that I could see 4 or 5 losses really without much difficulty. Hey, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. We're coming back.